Imagine this. You are driving your car, a good car, maybe worth $30,000 or $40,000, and a tiny warning light flicks on. Or you have a small bump in a parking lot, a little tap, the kind that used to mean absolutely nothing at all. You take it in to get looked at, and a few days later, you get a phone call that makes your stomach drop. The insurance company is going to write off your car. They are calling it a total loss. A car worth $40,000, declared dead. Over what? Over a small, cheap part, and the tangle of expensive work around it. How is this even possible? How can a modern car, full of the finest technology ever built, be totaled by a tiny sensor or a small knock? How can a part that costs the maker just a few dollars end up costing you the entire car? The answer is a story about how cars have quietly changed. They have become more amazing, and at the very same time, more fragile and far more expensive to fix than ever before. In this video, we are going to look under the hood and show you how the modern car was, in its own way, built to fail. Let's start with how it used to be. An older car was, at its heart, a machine you could understand and mend. If a part broke, you, or a local mechanic, could often replace it with simple tools and a modest amount of money. A headlight was a bulb. When it burned out, you popped in a new bulb for a few dollars in a few minutes. A bumper was a solid bar of metal. A small knock just left a dent, one you could ignore or bang out. The car was made of parts, and most of those parts were cheap and easy to swap. This meant an older car could keep running for a very long time. When something failed, you fixed that one thing cheaply and drove on. Cars were expected to last and to be repaired again and again. Now let's look at a modern car. And here is the big change. A modern car is not really just a machine anymore. It is a rolling computer. In fact, it is dozens of computers, all talking to each other, packed into every corner of the vehicle. There are sensors everywhere. Sensors that watch the engine. Sensors that watch the wheels. Cameras and little radars in the windshield, the mirrors, and the bumpers that watch the road for you and help with the braking and the steering. Your car is covered, inside and out, with delicate electronic eyes and ears. Now, a lot of this is genuinely wonderful. These systems can help stop a crash and even save lives. But every single one of them is also a new, delicate, and often very expensive point of failure. And they are placed in the most exposed spots on the whole car. Right up front, in the bumpers, behind the glass, exactly where even the smallest bump lands. Let me give you the clearest example there is. The humble headlight. On an old car, a headlight was a bulb, and a bulb was cheap. But on many modern cars, the headlight is a sealed, high-tech unit. It is packed with rows of tiny LED lights, and often with its own little computer, and even cameras and sensors built right into it. It is a beautiful, clever piece of technology. But here is the catch. Because it is one big sealed unit, you cannot just change a bulb anymore. If a single little light inside fails, or the tiny computer that runs it dies, you cannot fix that one part. You have to replace the entire headlight assembly as one giant, costly piece. And the cost of that? Brace yourself. For these fancy modern headlights, a single one can cost over $1,000. On some luxury cars, one headlight can cost $3,000 or even more. That is more than 10 times the cost of the old-fashioned kind. And that is for one headlight. Now imagine you need two. Suddenly, a simple lighting problem on your car costs as much as a decent used vehicle. But it gets worse. And this is the part that almost no one sees coming. Remember all those cameras and sensors watching the road? They have to be aimed very, very precisely to work safely. And here's the trap. If you do almost anything to the front of the car, you can knock that precise aim out of place. Replace a cracked windshield, and the camera behind it must be perfectly re-aimed. Bump the bumper, and the radar inside it must be recalibrated. Even something as simple as a wheel alignment can require the sensors to be set again. This re-aiming is called calibration. And it is not quick, and it is not cheap. It needs special equipment, and trained people, and time. Each calibration can add hundreds of dollars to a repair. So a job that used to be simple, like fixing a windshield, now comes with a costly, hidden second bill, just to reset all the sensors that got disturbed. Now let's put it all together, and you will see how a tiny part can kill a whole car. You have a small crash, a gentle tap in traffic. On an old car, this was a dented bumper and a cheap fix. But on a modern car, that bumper is full of sensors and radar. The tap may have damaged a sensor, or a headlight, or a camera. So now you need a new sensor and maybe a new sealed headlight at over $1,000. Plus a new bumper cover, molded and painted to fit. Plus the special calibration to re-aim every sensor that was touched. Plus the labor for all of it. Add all of that up, and the bill for a small bump can climb into the thousands very quickly. And here is the final blow. Insurance companies have a rule. If the cost to repair a car climbs too close to what the car is actually worth, they do not repair it. They write it off. They call it a total loss. So a small knock that damages a cheap sensor sets off a chain of expensive parts and pricey calibration, and the total climbs so high that a perfectly good, valuable car is simply declared dead. A car that is mostly fine, sent to the scrapyard, all because of a few small electronic parts and the costly work of resetting them. That is how a $12 part can total a $40,000 car. And there is one more layer to all of this that makes it even harder. More and more, the car makers are locking up the very tools and information needed to fix their cars. To work on a modern car, you often need special computer tools and secret codes and data that only the maker has. And the makers increasingly keep those things to themselves or share them only with their own official dealers. So your trusted local mechanic, the one who could once fix almost anything, is slowly being locked out. And when only the dealer is allowed to do the work, the price only ever goes one way, up. This is why there is a growing fight, in many places, over what is called the right to repair. People are pushing for fair rules that would force the car makers to share the tools, the parts, and the information so that you and your local mechanic can fix your own car at a fair price. The car makers are fighting back hard against it. And that fight, all by itself, tells you just how much control and how much money is truly at stake. So who wins here? The car makers and the dealers. Every fragile sensor, every sealed headlight, every costly calibration, and every locked-up repair funnels the work and the money straight back to them. And every car that is written off too soon is another brand new car they get to sell. And who loses? You do. You face repair bills that can total your car over a small problem. You pay higher and higher prices as fixing anything gets more expensive. And you lose the simple freedom to have your car mended cheaply at the shop of your choice. And the planet loses too. A car is one of the largest, most resource-heavy things most people will ever own. And more of them are being scrapped early over small, fixable faults. And by now, you know this pattern by heart. The cheap sensor is the weak link. The sealed, costly headlight is the repair trap. The calibration is the hidden bill. And the locked-up tools are the wall against repair. Different machine, on a grand scale, but the very same game. Fill it with fragile, expensive, sealed-up parts, and lock up the means to fix them. Then, when something small goes wrong, let the towering repair bill push you toward buying another. But if you really want to see where all of this is heading, look at the newest trick of all. Some car makers have started to lock features you already own behind a monthly fee. Here's what that means. The car rolls off the line with the heated seats already built in. The parts are there, under you, ready to go. But they will not turn on. Not unless you pay a monthly fee, forever, to unlock them. You bought the car. You own the seats. The heating elements are physically inside them. And still, you must pay, month after month, just to switch them on. It is a toll booth, built right into a thing you already paid for. And it points to a future they clearly want, where you do not really own your car at all. You just rent little pieces of it, one feature at a time, for as long as you keep paying. And software has crept into everything else, too. Look at the dashboard of a new car. Where there used to be simple buttons and dials for the heater, the radio, the fan, there is now one big touchscreen. It looks sleek and modern. But think about what that really means. All of those controls now depend on one screen and the computer behind it. If that screen fails, and screens do fail, you can lose control of your heating, your music, your maps, sometimes even your defroster, all at once. A single broken part now takes down half the car's controls. The old buttons could each break on their own and be fixed for pennies. The one big screen fails as one whole unit and costs a fortune to replace. Cars have even caught the parts pairing disease that we saw in phones. On some modern cars, parts are tied to that one specific car by a secret code. So you cannot simply take a good part from another identical vehicle and fit it. The car's computer checks the code, sees that it does not match, and refuses to fully accept the part. Once again, a real, working part, rejected, all because a company far away did not give its blessing. The very same trick, now bolted into a 2-ton machine. And because so much of the car is now run by software, the makers can even reach in from far away and change your car after you have bought it. An update arrives, overnight, through the air. Usually it is harmless. But there have been cases where an update quietly removed a feature people had paid for, or slowed something down, or locked something off. The car sitting in your driveway is no longer entirely yours to keep as it was. It can be changed, from a distance, on their terms, not yours. Let me give you the everyday version of how brutal this gets. A small stone flies up on the highway and cracks your windshield. On an old car, replacing a windshield was a simple, cheap job. But on a modern car, there is a camera mounted behind that glass, watching the road. So now, replacing the windshield also means carefully re-aiming that camera with special equipment, in a process that can cost as much as the glass itself, or even more. A cracked windshield, once a minor annoyance, is now a major bill. And that is just from a single stone. Now stretch that out across the whole car, and you can see the trap in full. Fragile, costly, sealed parts, in the most exposed places. Controls piled onto one breakable screen. Features held hostage behind monthly fees. Real parts rejected by secret codes. And repair knowledge locked away from your local mechanic. Every one of these makes the car more amazing to drive and more ruinous to fix. And the sum of them all is a machine that a small knock or a single flying stone can send to an early grave. And this reaches far beyond the person who buys the car brand new. Because when these fragile, feature-locked, hard-to-fix cars get older, they become a nightmare for everyone further down the line. The used car buyer faces repair bills that can dwarf the value of the car itself. The independent mechanic is locked out of the work. And more good vehicles get scrapped early, not because the engine failed, but because the electronics, or the sensors, or the locked-up repairs made them simply too costly to keep alive. A car is one of the heaviest, most resource-hungry things ever built. It takes a huge amount of metal and energy and human effort to make just one. And we are throwing them away sooner and sooner, over small, fixable, but deliberately expensive faults. The waste is staggering, and it is only growing. So how do you fight back? You have more power than you think. First, before you buy a car, think about the cost of the repairs, not just the cost of the car. Look up how much the common parts cost, like the headlights and the sensors. Some cars are famously cheap to fix, and some are famously ruinous. That knowledge can save you thousands of dollars down the road. Second, protect the expensive front end. So much of the cost lives in the sensors and lights up front. Drive carefully in tight spots. Park with real care. A little caution around the most fragile, costly parts of your car can save you from a repair bill that spirals right out of control. Third, find a good independent mechanic and support the right to repair. A trusted local shop can very often do the same work as the dealer for far less money. And by supporting fair repair laws, you help keep it that way for everyone. Fourth, understand your insurance and question a write-off. If your car is declared a total loss over what seems like a small problem, it is worth asking exactly what drove the cost so high. Sometimes there are options, like keeping the car and repairing it yourself, that are well worth exploring before you let a good car be scrapped. And most of all, remember the trick. When a tiny part leads to a giant bill, you now understand exactly why. The car was built with fragile, sealed, costly parts, in the most exposed places, and with the repair locked up tight. It was designed so that small problems become big ones. So the next time a little light comes on, or you have a small bump, and the repair bill lands like a punch, do not just accept that your good car is suddenly worthless. Stop. Ask what really failed. Because very often, the car itself is mostly fine. It was only a small, fragile part, and the wall of costly work built up around it, that turned a minor problem into a death sentence for the whole vehicle. Your car did not have to be this fragile or this costly to fix. It was built that way, on purpose, so that the small things would cost you big. This is just one machine, the biggest one most of us will ever own. On this channel, we keep opening them up and showing you the fragile parts and the hidden bills built into the things you trust. Because once you can see how they are built to fail, you can start choosing and protecting and keeping the ones that will not leave you stranded. So stick around. There is a whole lot more to uncover.